Hello everyone, welcome to the second lecture of Applied IoT. So we were in the last lecture we were talking about applications of IoT. We were taking a refreshment course or a little bit of a look back into IoT. So let's look at a summary of what we have learned in the last lecture, or what we have looked into in the last lecture. We looked at introduction to IoT devices, we looked at examples of IoT devices, and we went through a couple of IoT application examples. Right, we gave the definition as Internet of Things describes the network of physical objects or things that are embedded sensors, actuators, processing ability, software and other technologies for the purpose of connecting and exchanging data with other devices over the internet. That is a general definition of IoT, right? We talked about the definition, and we talked about the definition in length, and then we talked about examples for IoT devices: cameras, temperature monitoring or thermostats, lights, motion sensors, contact sensors, to smoke detectors, control centers, robotic arms, smart fridges, vacuums, smart locks, smart hospitals, virtual reality gaming, health monitoring, automotive IoT used in automotive industry, weather monitoring. We talked about these examples and how we can use these examples. Then we looked at a simple example of the data which is produced by weather monitoring IoT devices, when that data is transferred into IoT devices inside homes, how the temperature can be controlled, and so on, how these how Internet of Things work. This was a simple example from point to point. Then we talked about a couple of IoT solutions or IoTs working together through the internet to handle a single scenario, which is in this case a fire, and how a IoT fire control system would work. What are the options that are available in IoT to handle such scenario? So we went through all that, and by now we have a basic understanding of IoT and what IoT does. Before even this course, I think you have gone through courses to learn about IoT. Now, in this example, we will continue our lecture from this point onwards. From this example here is to show that how one set of IoTs or one IoT, which is a weather monitoring IoT, right? There are two examples given. One here you can see clearly that there's a wind monitoring, then there is temperature monitoring, and other humidity and other weather related instruments. I also added this instrument which monitors the light, which could be a part of weather monitoring IoT, right? So this would form a IoT device that that tells us real-time information about the atmosphere or the weather, including the light intensity, so the difference between daylight and night time, or even in a cloudy scenario, or when there's rain, and so on and so forth. So everything regarding weather, we can get information from this. This information in real time is fed into the internet. So couple of weather stations, maybe 100 kilometers apart, would give a, a situational awareness for people who are looking for real-time weather information in a large area. Maybe whether IoT weather monitoring tools which are located close together, maybe couple of kilometers away apart, could give a real-time reading of the weather in a small area. All that data can be fed into the internet, and from this example we are going to look at how that particular set of IoT devices, or a single IoT embedded device which can monitor all the weather scenarios in one go, can input data into the internet or into a cloud, and how that processing data can be used in favor of human activities, and how can we use it to be productive. So the first things first, smart lights. So information from the internet can be taken how the outside light intensity would be, right? This instrument is very commonly seen in cricket matches, especially in test cricket matches. You can see the umpires are using this instrument to measure the intensity of light. So if that data is fed into the internet in real time, IoT lights or smart lights which is connected to the internet can take that information and understand and the intensity of light outside, and they can adjust their brightness, switch on, switch off, or adjust their brightness accordingly. This will help the people who are living in that particular building or home, that smart home, right? They don't need to manually go and switch on lights, right? Again, they don't need to manually go and switch off lights. There will be energy savings, especially if you go to the second example, street lights. Street lights can also get this information from weather monitoring IoT units and see the intensity of the light. Maybe it is a rainy, cloudy day where the street lights needed to come up early, or it's a good sunny day in the morning. There's no clouds, and when the sun rises early, there's no need for light, so that they can be switched off quickly. So the efficiency and the savings are a lot. Plus their safety, because it might be a rainy time and manually switching on these lights is not possible, and if everything is automated, there is no human error. Thus lights will be switched on correctly when needed, and vehicles that are traveling on the road or people that are traveling on the road will have safety and have visibility of their surroundings. That particular set of information can also be applied into smart cities. Taking the information from the weather, where it could be the wind speed, light intensity, humidity, or whatever the property of weather we are checking for, smart cities can take that data and use it to have an efficient way of have a very efficient way of maybe practicing their switched on lights and turning their lights on and off, turning their heaters on and off, or their air conditioning on and off. Thus, it will be a comfortable environment for the people who are living in that city. It will be very efficient and energy saving. That if it is saving energy, that means there is a financial gain to it, right? So depending on that particular weather data, the amount we can actually adjust the amount of electricity which is needed to that town or city to facilitate electricity flow without any disruption. So these options are all there. The applications are there. We are monitoring only one thing, or we are monitoring the weather using IoT, but the applications are endless. Think of a situation where fishermen are going into the sea, where they go to catch fish from their trawlers, and weather is a very important fact, right? When going into the sea, calm waters will help fishermen and their boats to travel safely into the sea and to carry out their activities. So real-time weather data is really important. So when these trawlers are connected to the internet through satellite or somehow, this real-time data of the weather can be obtained. Of course, there are data structures when the internet, when the weather information that is collected by the IoT devices fed into the cloud environment. There will be structures of predicting how the weather could be depending on the humidity, the wind speed, so on and so forth. And that information of the prediction can be given to the people who are on the boats so that they can go to safety if some kind of a weather phenomena is taking place which would be harmful. Again, that data can be used in aviation. Of course, in aviation, weather plays a key role. The humidity, the temperature, the wind speed, the lights for the visibility of the pilot to see the ground, everything comes into play. Planes themselves carry instruments to measure the weather around them. Every airport has a weather monitoring unit, and when it is connected to a wide network or an internet, that data can be used to carry out airport functions smoothly, and the safety of the passengers when planes are either landing or taking off can be guaranteed due to the information that is given by these weather monitoring units. Take the wind speed for instance. If the wind speeds are too bad, the pilots can abort landing or taking off and wait till the wind speed come to a normal level so it's safe. Things like that. Another example, the same IoT devices or the same IoT sensors or same embedded IoT systems can be used for measure to tell climbers, hikers, or people who go on remote areas. Some like to go on hiking, some just for as a pleasure. Some like to some actually go into remote areas for research purposes. Some go to remote areas for finding minerals or finding new plants, animals, or even finding resources. People have to go to very remote areas to find resources. It could be from minerals, gold, silver, coal, or even oil, things like that, right? It could be on top of a mountain, in a desert, or even in the coldness of on the North Pole. Alaska comes into mind for a cold place where there is a lot of resources and it's remote. So weather monitoring information from nearby locations along with satellite data, which can be processed in a cloud system, can give out information about real-time data plus predictions to the future. So anybody who's traveling in a remote desolate area or harsh environment can access that data through satellite connectivity or somehow a link, a network connection to the internet, can gather that data and plan their travels. If they want to, if they are on a mountain range and the winds pick up, they can quickly go and find cover and get into safety. If the rains come down or the heat goes up or the wind pick up and the cold gets higher, that information can be taken in real time through IoT devices for human safety. So from this example or this set of example, I'm trying to explain here that a single set of sensors or single set of IoT devices which is there to measure the weather itself can give different types of applications for different industries, for different scenarios. It could be applied in different ways. The end result is, of course, it is very productive, it is very efficient, it is very productive. If it could be financially very positive as well, right? It would save energy, human error will be reduced, so on and so forth. So this is an example to show that a single set of IoT devices or an embedded IoT device that which monitors the weather can feed that data through the internet to parties which need that data from all locations of the world with different scenarios. The applications of a single set of IoT devices which measures the environment would be different. And if you take from that example, we will move to the final example of application of IoT, right? In this example, so we started by talking about a single use of IoT, right? A single path, single way use of IoT. Then we talked about multiple IoTs used together in conjunction for a single scenario. And we talked about a single set of IoT used in multiple scenarios. Now we are going to mix and match and see how these IoT devices can be used in different kinds of environments or scenarios or applications. So if you take the IoT side, right, we have smart smoke detectors, health monitors, then we have motion sensors and contact sensors. If you take the other side, we have heavy industries. It could be, let's say, steel manufacturing, cement manufacturing, even industrial scaled coal power plants, things like that. Then we have hospitals. Then here we have mining. 3 separate industries, 3 separate scenarios, and 3 separate IoTs. But let's see how each IoT can fit into these different scenarios. If you take smart smoke detectors or anything that can actually measure thermal activity, right? Any sensor that can, or IoT device that can measure thermal activity, or again smart smoke detectors which have the ability to detect not only smoke, the different types of smoke, purities in the air, and temperature of its surrounding. When applied into an industrial situation, if you take a steel manufacturing plant or some kind of a we can say cement manufacturing plant where there's a lot of heat is needed to activate the furnaces or the for the processes of producing their product. Smoke detectors are needed to see if the right amount of temperature is maintained throughout the factory. Anywhere there's a furnace involved, the heat would go up naturally. And that means when there is a lot of heat involved, the people who are working in that location is at risk of exposure to high heat. There is the vulnerability of fire starting and even if not measured properly, the furnaces could blow up. Then again, there's the other possibility of poisonous gas emitting. If you are burning coal, or if you are having a furnace to produce steel, or if you are making fertilizer, there are poisonous gas, harmful gases which have been produced. So those can be measured, the harmful gases in the environment as well as the temperature of the environment can be measured through smart smoke detectors. And that data can be fed through the internet or through an intranet to the relevant parties or the people who are working in the factory or the control room in real time. So that's an application to factories. What about smoke detectors getting application in hospitals? So in places like hospitals, mandatory to have smoke detectors, plus patients who are in ICUs or in special care units, they would the inside air, the purity of inside air should be measured at all times, right? The smart smoke detectors will be able to detect if there is any harmful substances, even a little bit of smoke, which if it is there in those wards, especially in the ICU in a hospital, or where patients are there with breathing disabilities. So smart smoke detectors can be used in that sense, with the obvious sense of protection from fire, because there are a lot of electrical components in a hospital to monitor those patients and so on. There are oxygen, lot of oxygen tanks. Seems harmless, but it is a substance that can and help flames to grow. So smoke detectors are needed in hospitals for such scenarios. Then again, if you take smoke detectors and when you go into mining, the use of smoke detectors could be mainly for monitoring the air purity inside mines, right? When mining, there will be air pockets of methane or unnecessary or harmful gases inside the mines, and miners could get exposed to it. So it is better to have smart smoke detectors to detect those harmful gases. Then there are controlled explosions inside mines, and to see that those controlled explosions happens correctly without any fire breaking through or any kind of unnecessary fumes getting out. We can use smoke detectors to take real-time data before the humans even go into the mine. These data can be analyzed and the safety of the humans who are going for mining can be determined. So you can see that smoke detectors can be applied for all three scenarios. So what about the next one? The next one is health monitoring devices. So in this picture, of course, you can see it's a smartwatch, but don't think of it as a smartwatch. There will be different types of wearables, even custom-made wearables, just for monitoring health of human beings. The very obvious choice is in front of this picture. It's the hospitals. In the hospitals, there are specially designed equipment, IoT devices, to measure patients, either heart rate, pressure, temperature, so forth. So if you take a patient, if you take a patient who's in ICU, right, from the heart rate, pressure, oxygen levels, body temperature to everything in between, if these devices are connected to a network or to the internet, that data could be fed into needed parties, or let's say the nurses who are monitoring this patient, or the doctors that are working on this patient can get that data in real time. So if there are any differences happening in the monitoring data, they can act quickly and attend to that patient. So or if you take a pacemaker or something like that, adjustments can be made even remotely if it is connected to the internet, or the IoT devices can process that data and take action accordingly. From control of the flow of saline to monitoring liquid consumption or the body temperature, everything can be done through IoT devices. Mainly when we are talking about, most of them are today done by devices, and when those devices are connected to a network, it could be an internal network, it could be the internet itself, the data can be shared in real time with the people who need to know the data. That includes nurses and the doctors and even loved ones who needs to keep an eye on that patient closely. Then if we have health monitoring devices, let's say in a steel manufacturing plant, people, if you take people or workers of a steel manufacturing plant, workers in a fertilizer manufacturing plant, or let's say a coal power plant, cement production, things, heavy industries like that, we can give workers their health monitoring tools or health monitoring IoT devices. These IoT devices will be connected to a centralized network where the control room, or even through the internet, remote control rooms or managers can keep an eye on the health of the people who are working there. Why it is important? The main thing is that these people are working on a risky workspace, right? When working with steel, molten lava like steel, it is very important to measure the health of the human beings who's working on the workflow. Even coal power plants, the heat, the smoke, cement manufacturing power plants, again the heavy machinery, the heat and chemicals that are involved, so on and so forth. Fertilizer plant, especially the chemicals that are involved. So the health of the humans which are working there is very needed to be monitored at all times. Are they getting exhausted? Is the heat going up around them, or that means there's a possibility of that person getting exhausted? Heart rate, pressure, oxygen levels in the body, things like that. Monitoring things like that in real time would help the people who need a rest or to be taken care of, to give quick attention to them and give medication or rest or assistance before things get really worse. So same scenario comes into people who are going into mines. Real time monitoring the health of the people who are inside the mine could give idea of how safe the situation is inside the mine. Not everybody can enter the mine, so so most of the time things must be remotely checked or checked through IoT devices. either intranet or the internet. So rescue forces or medical staff who will be outside the mine or at all times when the mine is functioning, right, like quickly attend when somebody gets hurt, either something wrong in the blood pressure or the blood oxygen levels, things like that. When a human being is in distress, they can quickly activate and go and help the person before it's too late. So then again, when we have monitoring tools of health, IoT devices that monitors health, it can be applied for different industries. Then we have the final example or set of examples. It is motion detectors or contact sensors. So again, motion detectors or contact sensors, how can this be used in mines? We will start from there. When mining, it is really important to keep an eye on which rocks are moving, which rocks are loosened up, which need attention. If there's a possibility of those rocks loosening up and falling, it is better to have motion detectors or contact sensors, things like that, attached to those rocks to see if there are any slight movements, so people can get a warning before things got bad. If you take a controlled blast, which happens all the time in mines, to dig to loosen up the soil and dig through, right, humans cannot attend those locations for few when the blast takes place, and for maybe several hours even after the blast takes place. So motion detectors or contact sensors are needed to see if they can monitor if the blast zone actually worked, and did that blast did some changes to soil in other locations, right? Because if the soil starts moving even slightly, right, it would be like an avalanche, it will follow through. If there are differences happening in the soil itself, right, these contact sensors can say, because if this contact part is in one rock and this contact part is in one rock, if they have a small difference of change, that will be detected through these sensors and give early warning to people who are working in these mines. So yes, motion sensors and contact sensors can be used in mines in that way. And again, motion sensors can be used in mines to understand which part of the mine is active and which parts are not, which parts human beings are, or if a trolley is going or an automated vehicle is going through the mine, because it's a less dense, it doesn't have a lot of space. Caves or mines inside doesn't have a lot of space. So to monitor what is taking place inside the mine itself, motion sensors can be used. Let's see how these motion sensors and contact sensors can be used in hospitals. Well, the first thing that comes into my mind is the COVID scenario. In the COVID scenario, the special wards have to be dedicatedly made for patients to handle the patients, and those wards have to be isolated, meaning that the air should not go out from that ward, because this is an infection, or this is a virus that goes through the air, so it should be sealed from people who are outside that ward. Could be patients, could be nurses, could be doctors, could be family members, or so on and so forth. So the air should be filtered and sent out if it is needed to be. So that would be the proper way. So in hospitals, that means there are wards, even if coronavirus is there or not, there are wards to handle such scenarios, isolation rooms, and those isolation rooms have to be closed and sealed properly. To see if the all doors and if all doors are closed and windows are closed properly, we can use contact sensors. Then again, if somebody wants to go in to those wards, again these contact sensors can show that if the door is open or not, or people are going in or out. And if patients are in bed and if a patient is feeling distress, let's say if this is a different scenario in the ICU, a patient started feeling distress and started moving vigorously, maybe because of pain, maybe because of something like that. So motion sensors can be there to monitor if those irregularities take place of patients, and if that happens quickly, alarms will be, or notifications will be given to nurses and doctors to attend to that patient quickly. So again, quick reaction will be facilitated in the hospitals by motion sensors. Then again, we go for heavy industries. Motion sensors and contact sensors are the lifeblood of heavy industries. Most of the things that are in heavy industries are heavy machinery, and when that heavy machinery is in motion or is working, human beings have a hard time to monitor, because it's not safe to go near those machines when they are working. Right? If you take a steel manufacturing plant, the furnaces are very hot and large in size. The lifting up of the melted steel should be done by very heavy machinery, and we have to see whether these are dropped and molded into different objects, and those we have to see those if these heavy machinery are working properly. One of the best ways to preserve accuracy of those machinery and to get a good outcome without humans needing to risk their lives and go and check them is through motion sensors and contact sensors. Machinery which has moving parts can be monitored through motion sensors and contact sensors. So if you take from heavy industries to a bottle manufacturing plant, a bottling plant like, let's say, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of bottles moving around and a lot of motion taking place. A lot of accuracy is needed between the bottling machines. So those things can be measured through motion sensors to see the health of those machines, and through contact sensors. If you take the famous pictures of automated vehicle manufacturing companies where there are robot arms working around, contact sensors and motion sensors are needed for those robotic arms to understand at which to understand which is the moving part, which is not the moving part. Is the vehicle structure in front of me, and am I welding into the correct part of the vehicle, so on and so forth. So contact sensors and motion sensors are needed in that way as well. So this example is mainly there to show that IoT devices, which could be different in nature, can be used in different scenarios. Smoke detectors can be used in all three scenarios. Health monitors can be used in all three scenarios. Motion sensors and contact sensors, those can also be used in all three scenarios. So IoT devices the features can be applied in different scenarios. So these are the examples I'm giving you. These were in the for IoT course as well. So what I'm trying to say here is there will be single use, right? This IoT application is there to control temperature. There could be multiple IoT devices for a single scenario, multiple IoT devices working for a single scenario, in this case fire extinguishing, fire control. There is a single IoT device that can be used in multiple scenarios, right? In this case, weather monitoring. Here it is a mix and match of all of this. One scenario getting a lot of IoTs to automate the work, and one IoT serving different scenarios, right? So as you can understand, the application of IoT is endless. And so from all this, from the examples about devices, and I want to recall your memory on what are IoT devices and what are their applications. Now, after looking at IoT and looking at IoT examples and IoT applications, examples how IoT can be applied, finally refreshing our minds of what is IoT, we can finally come to introduction to applied IoT. So here is the place where we start applied IoT. Applied IoT refers to the practical application of Internet of Things, technologies and solutions in real-world scenarios across various industries and domains. It involves using IoT devices, connectivity, data analytics, and cloud platforms to solve specific challenges, improve process, enhance decision making, and create value. So that would be the definition, that would be a definition of applied IoT. And the main thing that is needed to be highlighted is the final word, or the final two words, is to create value. Learning applied IoT is all about using IoT applications for resolving a problem which creates value in the marketplace, or to a specific person, or to a specific company. Creating value means it could be two ways. It could be either through productivity, efficiency, in that way, or using such an option to make the increase the processing capabilities of productions. So there, in creating value, the value, it's maybe the IoT applications. For if you look from one angle, it would be much more expensive to use IoT rather than using manual methods, but it would have, IoT would create value in other sense. It would be maybe efficient, the machinery would be efficient, so energy would be saved, more production can be done in a small amount of time, so the production goes up, then the value goes up, the amount of analytics, the amount of data that can be collected for decision making would be greater, the response time would be greater. Remember the example we talked about when a fire takes place, having a fire control system in an IoT environment, how that could be efficient. So that is value creation. So let's go through the introduction again, and then we will casually look at what IoT applications are there in different sectors or industries. Applied IoT refers to the practical application of Internet of Things. So practically applying IoT technologies. So Internet of Things or technologies, IoT technology and solutions in real world scenarios across various industries and domains. I will go through that again. Applied IoT refers to the practical application of Internet of Things, Internet of Things, technologies and solutions in real world scenarios across various industries and domains. It involves using IoT devices, connectivity, data analytics, and cloud platforms to solve specific challenges, improve process, enhance decision making, and create value. So you can see that the overall application of a IoT, when an IoT application is used to solve a problem or as a new solution, an efficient solution, the application should have the following properties. Mainly, of course, it is Internet of Things. That means it should have connectivity, right? When it is connected to the internet, cloud resources come into play. That means data analytics and cloud platforms can be used. When talking about cloud platforms, processing power plus storage and the shared resources of the cloud platform will be there at any IoT device disposal. Again, we talked about a lot of examples above, right? Which you can see the best example would be the weather. We talked about IoT devices to using for weather. That data could be collected and that real-time data could be processed under weather models against past weather data, which to predict the future weather conditions, right? And we talked about in the example how that is valuable for different industries in different ways. So that means data analytics that will be done on cloud platforms to solve. So this is the part to solve specific challenges, improve processes, enhance decision making, and create value. The end product of applied IoT or applying IoT solutions would be to solve specific challenges, improve process, enhance decision making, and create value, right? That is the main what we are going to understand through applied IoT is how to apply a IoT solution to solve specific challenges. In here, challenges would be coming as problems. Improving process, so enhance the processes that are there already using legacy systems, how we can improve them. Enhanced decision making would be data analytics. That means we will get real-time data out of IoT devices from the sensors, and that data will be used for decision making and create value. Everything above, solving challenges or problems, improving process, enhance decision making, would create value to any industry, any society. So overall, by applying IoT, we are creating value. So we should know, if we are to learn applied IoT, we should know how to create value when giving a IoT solution to the customer. You will be looking from engineering perspective, and they will a user or a customer would be coming to you and saying, this is the problem we have, we need some kind of a solution for this. So you will be giving an IoT solution to create value to that industry or that company, right? So again, applied IoT refers to the practical application of Internet of Things technologies and solutions in real world scenarios across various industries and domains. It involves using IoT devices, connectivity, data analytics, and cloud platforms to solve specific challenges, improve processes, enhance decision making, and create value. Right. So now, what is IoT or applied IoT is clear. From now on, we are going to look at how IoT solutions could be applied for different industries or domains to solve challenges, improve processes, enhance decision making, and creating value. Of course, we live in a capitalistic world. End of the day, if we are to produce a product, produce an IoT product, it should create value to the person who's going to use that IoT product. Let's go back before now. You can see there are different examples down here, right? We will about different domains and different industries. But before going into that, we will little bit revisit our examples, right? So we can see, does these IoT solutions improve process or enhance decision making or solve challenges and create value? Those we talked about some examples. Do they do that? We have to see that if these things create value, right? So basically, in this example, we talked about controlling of temperature. For a hospital or a place where a nursing home or places like that, these actually create value because their customer would be the patient, and the patient needs proper temperature to get better, right? So that means that would be a value adding thing. But if you take other there would be for a person who's living in a smart home, it would be a problem, or the manual process will be to go and always adjust the thermostat manually. So we can stop that by having a IoT system, right? So we talked about topics here, right? Creating value, enhance decision making. So in this case, decision making will be done automatically by the IoT device, right? So that decision, or the person who's in the, let's say, office building, who's doing maintenance, or the people who are working in the office, does not need to always think or take decisions looking at the temperature outside. Is it raining? Is it getting cold? Why it is so cold here? Why it is so hot here? We need to change the AC. Those things doesn't need to happen when that process is handled by a IoT system. Now if you go to this, right, again you will see like somebody might say, using a IoT system, using IoT in the infrastructure to handle fires would be much more expensive rather than using legacy systems. But so then we have to see what are the things that would add value. We talked about different scenarios. For example, the smoke detectors having more sensors, more features, right? We talked about real-time action. So let's say around after 12 o'clock or 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., there will be no people in the building. So the reaction time would be far less And if this gets automated, as soon as a fire starts, the control room and the fire department and the owners of the building could be notified, right? That it makes the process more efficient, more reliable. Thus, we know the value adding would be for that is that if there's a fire occurs, it would be turned into a very minimal impacting fire, rather than the fire taking hold of entire building and destroying everything. Then we talked about how the sprinkler system could be functioning accordingly through the control centers or through IoT devices, so that the sprinklers of the needed area will be activated and rest doesn't need, so that the either the files, the documentation, or the electrical components, devices, that could be PCs, projectors, so on and so forth, won't be damaged due to the water. We can go for additional steps, giving notification to the people who are staying in the buildings, seeing the health status of the people who are in the building in real time. Those things are not possible in a legacy environment or doing things manually. Those things are possible in IoT environments, because the real-time data connectivity would help to have those options. So those new options, like to see the health of everybody in the building, plus the types of smoke which is being emitted, so that the firefighters can get prepared, relevant information being passed, how large the fire is, in which floor the fire is on the building, so the firefighters can come prepared, so on and so forth. So these things are giving, that means adding more options, adding more properties to the IoT solution. So thus it would create value. So the process will be, we talked about, so let's again go to the definition. So it improves the process, enhance decision making. How? Because the alerts will go out quickly. There's no need for a person to be at that location to understand what kind of a fire it is. There is and even if it's a small fire, or it's the data would go across to the needed parties, to the fire department or to the control room of that building. So the managers who are on, let's say, night shift can see the alerts, and the owners of the building could see the alerts. So it will enhance decision making, because the alert, that data would be in front of the decision making people very fast, right? So solving specific challenges, it would be mainly controlling let's say, for example, a challenge would be to control the sprinkler system, the water pumping system inside the building, right? They needed to be controlled according to the data which is given by the smoke detectors, so that there will be minimum harm to the property through the sprinkler system as well. So that particular part, that delicate balance, could be done just by automating through IoT the entire system. So the smoke detectors can point out where the smoke is, where the fire is. The sprinklers at that portion could turn on without any human intervention automatically, and take out the fire. So things like that, we can see that, okay, now we know, now, okay, IoT devices give more options, increase processes, decision making ability. It would anyway, saving human lives is adding value, right? End of the day, saving human lives is adding value. It's something that we cannot calculate, right? So it creates value in that sense. So again, if you take here, we can see the fisherman who's going out to sea, the planes that are taking off, the people who are going in remote locations like mountains, hiking, or so on and so forth, and smart city lighting, everything. That decision making can take place efficiently, properly through IoT systems. How does it create value for the city itself? Right, the lights will be turned on and turned off at the most convenient, most proper times. If there's so the some there will be days which are cloudy, which will get dark quickly. There will be days which the sunlight will be there for maybe another hour or 45 minutes. Turning on and off the street lights at a correct time, that 45 minutes could save millions of rupees, or in other countries euros or dollars, to that municipality council, or the people or the entity that is controlling the lights on the streets. So things like that, it creates value. That decision making process, is the light too low, is the light too high, do we need to switch on the light, those decision making processes can be automated as well. We can give parameters, and when those parameters are reached of the intensity of the lights will come out. So that means enhanced decision making will be done. Improved processes, main thing would be turning on the lights on the right time and not. Then again, if you take fishing, if a trawler have to go to sea without proper information from the weather, and let's say it went for 5 days, 2 days, as the sea was rough and they couldn't do any fishing, but still they have to pay for the people who came on the journey. They have to pay for the fuel, they have to pay for the maintenance of the boat, so on and so forth. There will be expenditure. But if they know the weather condition before they leave from the harbor, right, they can make it very efficient by just needing the fuel to go only for 3 days, and all those 3 days that they can make sure that they have a catch, so that they can earn. So that's how the process gets efficient, right? So even little things like that, we can use IoT solutions to address things like that, right? Here, of course, if you take health monitoring in hospitals, right, in real time, it improves the process, because real-time data will be always fed into the system, and it will be in front of the nurses of the wards. So nurses doesn't need to attend, right? Like, there will be 100 patients would be there on a ward. There will be 10 nurses attending those patients. So they can't be in front of every patient at all times. But if you have a IoT solution for it, if the real-time data is coming through a network into a centralized location, the nurses who are working there can keep an eye on the patient 24/7. So keeping, let's say 100 patients are there, only 5 nurses are there, it would be a challenge to keep an eye on everyone. That challenge can be resolved through IoT. The process is, as I told you before, is improved, right? All these things, end of the day, creates value, right? So if you have smoke detectors in legacy factories, or to measure the temperature of, again, we talked about coal power plants, or we talked about cement production, which needs a lot of energy, lot of heat is created. Steel manufacturing, lot of heat is created. So when there are sensors out there measuring every possible scenario, right, things that go went wrong in the past, because there are no checks to see, or sensors to see what is going on inside the machine or what is going on outside the machine, there is a safety risk. That safety risk is totally gone. The damage to the machinery, the damage to human life can totally be resolved through IoT systems. In mining industry as well, so industries, especially specifically in heavy industry, specifically in dangerous industry, for example, oil rigs comes to mind when digging for oil. Those are very treacherous jobs, digging for coal, any type of mining. It could be diamonds, for minerals, so on and so forth. Sensors connected to a network, which is basically a IoT device, can give real-time readings to take quick decisions and make things efficient, right? So throughout this lesson, we try to understand how to apply IoT solutions to solve specific challenges, improve processes, enhance decision making, and create value. So throughout we will be learning that, right? So now let's look at several scenarios, either industries or domains that use IoT, right? To again, to repeat, to solve specific challenges or to solve problems, improve processes, enhance decision making, and create value. Let's see how each industry or each domain, right? We will take small examples and see how IoT improves those domains. Look at let's look at where in applied IoT is being used in different industries and domains, right? Let's again look at some examples and try to understand the properties that we are talking about when IoT is applied to a industry or a domain, right? So consumer and homes, right? This would be something that even you will be familiar with. We have starting from security cameras to our homes, to our smart fridge, smartphone, wearables including your smart watch, smart lights. We talked about them. We talked about smart vacuums, the Roomba vacuum cleaner which cleans the floor by itself. We have smart right, we can have a network to for our printers and other peripheral devices. We will have control systems like Alexa. So like even by verbal commands we can control everything inside a smart home, and so on and so forth. So everything is used mainly to reduce the burden of manual labor, make it more productive as well, right? If you have a smart fridge, we talked about, then and there the smart fridge could give recipes, and then keep no need to open the fridge from the smart fridge's screen. We can see what is inside, thus preserving energy, because every time you open the door, the fridge would need to cool more. That means more energy will be used. So in this way less energy will be used, so on and so forth, right? So there are many applications. Again, we talked about smart plugs, contact sensors, air purifiers, smoke detectors, cameras, not only for security, maybe for monitoring a small baby in another room, and so on and so forth. Temperature monitoring and control, these are also things that we talked about. All these things again would specifically overcome challenges. Let's say a newborn baby is there, so the parents have to always look after the newborn baby, but then again there will be chores inside the house, and sometimes parents need to go out maybe to work to earn a living, and so on and so forth. But when that happens, to keep an eye on the baby, there can be cameras and motion sensors, even speakers to speak to the child will be connected, and they will be connected to the internet. Through the internet, parents can access that video live to see the child his well-being, and if needed attention, quickly act, right? That has been achieved by IoT. So these solutions are there to solve a problem of not only to solve problems but enhance living conditions, the enhance no, enhance and give value to human living conditions. Again, the thermostat will be adjusted and by automatically checking the outside temperature and inside temperature. Thus, manual controls are no more needed for them, right? So on and so forth. We talked a lot about the examples as well, so we will go through quickly. Then we have smart infrastructure. Smart infrastructure, we talked about having smoke detectors, smart lights. So there will be the fire extinguishing unit. So the smart smoke detectors connected to the controls, and then the sprinklers connected to the internet or to the network. So they working in conjunction to control fire. The infrastructure itself is, now we can say, it's a smart infrastructure, right? Things like that. So for a home, not this, the infrastructure could be again temperature control could be there. The amount of electricity that is being consumed can be calculated. If the electricity bills are high, IoT systems can collect data of which device is actually consuming more electricity, and then decisions can be made whether to not use or not to use that device, because one of the properties of IoT is lesser electricity consumption. So by using IoT devices, we can look for devices which use a lot of electricity, and we can change settings to save energy, to save cost. Then again, we can check the pressure of water supply throughout a house, a building, apartment, and so on. So if there are any leaks in the pipes, those things can be detected by the dramatic change in pressure, water pressure. Those things can be also measured. Thus, things that would need manual checking, or things that even may not be checked because piping systems does not appear on ground on for some piping would be inside walls or inside places where humans cannot access or humans cannot see. Leaks that occur in those areas cannot be quickly found or taken action on. So things have to get really worse for people to see the problem inside the walls, the pipes that are going inside the walls or going underground. So by having pressure monitors, IoT system to check the pressure of the water at all time, can determine whether there is a leak or not. Things like that. So not only that, smart infrastructure means when you have each home, each building, it could be a shopping mall, it could be a small boutique or anything, all these structures inside a city is connected to a smart grid, or connected to IoT devices. The people who are supplying electricity, or people who are supplying water, people who are taking care of switch, can actually have a real-time view on what is taking place, how much electricity is needed. So the electricity provided to a city can be balanced accordingly, so no waste of electricity, no waste of resources by creating extra electricity, and no outages by creating less electricity. So things like that. It in itself creates value. If electricity is produced less, there will be power outages. Power outages lead to losses in value, commercial value, right? But then again, if too much electricity is produced, it goes to waste, it will be not in use. So resources will be like, let's say, a coal power plant, a gas power plant, or even if you think of a solar power plant, or water hydropower plant, right? The resources should be managed when producing electricity. So unnecessary use of resources would result in loss in value, in financial value. So that would be reduced by using IoT devices in a smart infrastructure. Then we have security and surveillance. We talked about this is something we know. We can use resources in cloud to keep the information stored, and we can use image processing in software to see if there is unnecessary movement, or people moving into places where they don't belong. So when coming into security surveillance, one of the things is using cameras and motion sensors. Vast areas could be covered in real time. Let's say that we want to cover a very large storage, a very large storage unit. The storage unit might have different kinds of grains, and there will be at least 4 or 5 buildings with either grains or food, flour. So surveillance should be there all the time to see if there is theft, if there are animals trying to move into the storage areas and destroy the products, and so on and so forth. To have live surveillance at all times, that then if it is a couple of acres of the storage area, then there will be a significant amount of people needed to cover that area at all times. Then again, the human error comes into play, because maybe at night time humans would have a difficult time to concentrate and keep an eye on things at all times. So in that situation, IoT device, IoT security camera system or motion sensor system can be used, right? And that data can be processed through image processing to see who is trespassing, who is getting, like if there are animals trying to move into the storage area, and so on and so forth. That's a small example. So in that way, the process of surveilling is improved. Like maybe 1 or 2 people inside a control room will be more than enough to survey the whole 1 acre area 24/7 uh, without human error, because the alerts will be created by the IoT system. The image processing, to see the movement, where the movement take place, if there's a person trespassing that area, to see that, it will be done by again it will be done by IoT systems. So that means removing human error, plus removing the amount of people need to surveil that area. There will be those will be value adding features to a business. So in again, security and surveillance, IoT is a must have these days. So healthcare sector, we talked about it extensively when coming into in healthcare. It's all about devices with sensors to measure either blood pressure, sugar levels in the blood, heartbeat, heart rate, oxygen levels in the blood, so on and so forth. So it is all about sensors when coming into keeping an eye on patients in real time. When those sensors, when those devices are connected to the internet, and those data fed in real time to the nurses on duty or doctors on duty, we have a IoT system which helps healthcare workers to attend to patients whenever needed, quickly as possible, right? Again, in the retail market, right, in the retail market we have okay, now this is we can say as this is a new example. Think about retail. Think about what are the IoT devices that needed in a retail. What are the IoT devices needed in retail? Number one, we can go back to security. Surveillance is needed to see the products in the shelves and the products are not being stored. If you think about clothing brands, you have special tags you may have seen. So those tags are there to see if the clothes are being stored or not. So without removing those tags, people cannot move out from the shop door. Alarms will go off. So then there's a security element to it. Then of course you have seen that there are scanners, barcode scanners, self checkout, then again scanning your credit card or your debit card. So that means in retail as well, there are devices either when coming into payment or reading the prices of a particular product through a barcode, of the things like that, or keeping inventory through a barcode, right? Things like that have sensors in use connected to the internet, to the cloud, to do the transaction properly. So those are also a part of IoT. Large retail shops would have fire extinguishing systems, they would have storage areas. Then again, we talked about what are the surveillance needed in a storage area, so on and so forth. End of the day, again, if all those things are connected to the internet, managers of those stores can keep an eye on everything, on the amount of stock, when it would expire, and so on. Those data could be collected through the system and the barcode system. How much retail is being how much products are being moved, how much is sold, how much is returned. So by that, right, using that data through the barcode system can actually give an idea of what to sell and what not to sell for retailers. Then again, we have payment system. So in payment systems, there should be a secure payment system, and normally the credit card machines or debit card machines, these are the ways of secure payment that we use. But then again, in the 21st century, we have other online payment systems that we can use in conjunction, right? We can scan a QR code and just do our payment. So things like that to make life easier. But when life is easier, people come to that shop, right? No need to fiddle with cash or anything, just can scan the QR code and pay. So that means having that IoT system, right? Having that IoT system would help bring in customers. So it add value to the to that retail shop. So in that, if you are thinking what would be the IoT device, the IoT device would be the customer's phone itself, because there's a camera, there's an image processor that would be taking in the data from the QR code, right? That data will be processed inside through the processing units inside the phone, right? And then it will be authenticated, right? There will be fingerprint sensors to release the payment, right? Security options like that will be also there. So the phone itself would act as a embedded IoT device in that scenario. So in retail also, right? Again, when keeping inventory, you can use RFID tags and right, RFID tags to keep track of the inventory, where it's going, into which shop it's going. So if you have mass scale distribution, right, if you take something like Cargills or Keels, they have to keep an eye on a lot of products moving around the country. That means that they have to keep tags on each product, right? It cannot be if needed to be managed by a centralized location. We will talk about that in logistics and warehouses. Industrial applications for IoT, we talked about this. We talked about when we were talking about industrial applications of different IoT devices. Again, we talked about heavy industries, health industry, and we also talked about mining industry, right? Then here we talked about aviation industry, fishing industry as well. One example there, but you can see that we can manufacture IoT devices according to the requirement, and we have others as well. We can see others over here, right? So then we have the next example of applied IoT for the power grid. So in a power grid, what are the things that is needed? We talked about smart infrastructure as an example. We say we can monitor the amount of electricity which is being consumed. It could be a building, it could be a home, it could be a shopping mall, places like that. It could be from the street lights. So these data can be obtained if you have sensors to measure how much electricity is consumed. And if that is the case, in a smart city or a smart grid would have the ability to understand and collect data of how much electricity is consumed by the end user. So when the power grid comes from, so that means the consumer, here marked as D, right, the amount of electricity consumed, what are the patterns of the consumer when taking in electricity. For example, if it is the summer, more ACs will come on, there will be more electricity used. If it is the winter, the AC, or if it is the springtime, or if it is in Sri Lanka, let's say if it is a rainy day, or if it is the months of, let's say, November, December, it's a little bit cooler than the months of April, May, so that means there will be a difference between the electricity usage. That data can be collected. When that data is collected, the generation of electricity can be done without any wastage and without any loss of electricity as well, because if the production is low, the consumption is high, then of course the trips will go out and there will be blackouts, right? So that is one option. A vast electricity grid can be monitored, and decision making process for how much electricity we want to produce can be taken through the data which is being collected by IoT systems. Then what else? So we have a very transmission lines, distribution methods. So all these transmission lines should be surveilled, and all these distribution centers should be surveilled to see if there are any physical defects due to either branches falling down into power lines. When there is heavy rain, thunder, after that will these electricity distribution and transmission lines would get damaged or not? Those things have to be done, rather than taking a long time to find in the defect. Sensors or camera systems can be set up. IoT devices, in other words, can be set up along the distribution line, along the transmission line, to check every instrument or every part of the distribution system, and if any attention is needed, they can quickly come and fix the issue. As well as there will be thermal, let's say thermal sensors would be there. If something is overheating, right, we can measure that. One of the best examples I can give is recently DJI, the drone company, right, has introduced a brilliant IoT device. So they have introduced a drone which would be parked inside a box, like containment unit, right? So from the rain, snow or heat, it will not get damaged, right? And the only thing, now these high tension power lines, they go through over forests and remote areas, so it is hard to surveil them or to keep an eye on them to see if any defects are there, or if anything is about to break, right? Before breaking, if we can take action, that would be the best. So how to surveil these in harsh conditions? So especially in DJI is a Chinese company, so they were showing examples there. So in the winter season, it's very hard to go into the mountains to check these high tension power lines. So they have devised that, so they have given a solution, they have given an IoT solution where that drone can be placed, right, in with the containment unit, right, nearby, and it will automatically deploy the drone when needed, and the drone would fly along the power lines, giving a full HD picture to the control center of the status of the power lines, right? When that area scan is done, the drone will come back automatically to the containment center, containment unit, go inside the containment unit, and it will get, the containment unit will close itself and to protect the drone, and the drone could recharge and then go on the next flying mission. So it's a totally autonomous system to check the especially the heavy transmission lines which go through remote areas. So the people does not need the humans who are actually working for the electricity company does not need to go out and check these things. Now, in treacherous conditions, especially in harsh conditions like in the winter, right, in remote areas where there is no roads and so on and so forth, now the drone can do it for them. So it is efficient, right? Because a vast area can be covered very quickly, and the drone could fly near to the lines and take a HD quality image, so people can comfortably sit in the control room and check for any defects, without much of a stress going into that environment in harsh conditions. Human error is also being omitted, and the process is improved by actually making the process faster. If you have a line which goes for 100 kilometers over mountains and forests and so on and so forth, right, humans would take a long time to navigate through that mountains, forests, rivers and so forth, where there's no roads or anything, right? You have seen how high tension line goes. They don't follow through like they don't follow along roads or where civilization is, right? Most of the time they go through forests or over the mountains and so on and so forth, so it's hard to travel there. So having a automated system, IoT system, right, which can autonomously fly and check those transmission systems is a great help. So DJI has given a IoT solution for checking those transmission lines. Again, if you have power generation, we talked about thermal power generation. So that means when we are talking about thermal power generation, we need to understand that when coming into thermal electricity production, that means there's heat energy. So we need to keep a real time eye over the heat which is being produced. We need to keep an eye on the pressure of the steam that is being produced. So these things we have to we have to have sensors to check the heat, to check the pressure of the steam. We have to keep an eye on where the sun's traveling in solar power plants, so we can turn the solar panels into the correct direction or into the sun, so that we can achieve maximum efficiency. So we have seen that those automated systems, those IoT systems are already there. Same comes for wind energy. We need to monitor those large wind turbines. We need to keep an eye on the weather. We need to keep an eye on the wind speeds. So these things are being achieved by IoT systems, and today we have the ability to keep real-time tabs on what is taking place. Again, when coming in, if you take a very complex scenario like a nuclear power plant, IoT is a must. We are talking about we have to check radiation at all times, at every place. We have to check the steam pressure which is being generated. A lot of machinery is there to facilitate whether the pumping of the water or to generation of electricity. There are a lot of machinery involved in between to keep the process going in a nuclear power plant, which means all those components needed to be surveilled through either pressure, heat, even through image or motion sensors, contact sensors, to see all the seals are correctly being when even a lid or a door or closed, we have to see if it is done properly or not. So things like that. Then again, we have agriculture. When coming into agriculture, we talked about here weather sensors giving out data, right? For agriculture, that is IoT is a must. We have seen now in trends that having pesticides or if having fertilizer sprayed on plants, that is been now done by drones. We have farmers using tractors with with autonomous capabilities. We have seen sensors to detect the amount of nutrients in the soil. We have seen sensors to detect the amount of moisture in the soil, and by that proper decisions can be made to control the amount of water needed, and so on and so forth. I think, if I remember correctly, the application which is used in India for agriculture, which was IoT device that has the capability of measuring the amount of fertilizer in the soil. What it was innovation from Sri Lanka, right? But it is used in India at the moment, and what it did was, it actually recognizes that the farmers of India is using too much fertilizer, unnecessary amount of fertilizer. So by putting the right amount of fertilizer, Indian farmers actually saved millions of dollars, because they will get the same product by using less fertilizer. So having a measurement of the amount of fertilizer needed to the soil itself is an advantage. The value will flow through when farmers have to use less fertilizers to get the same product. The price of the product would go low, so the customers or the consumers of that either rice or wheat or potatoes or whatever would get it to a lesser price. So here is that is a good example of how IoT is helping in farming industry. It doesn't need to be in a developed country. Even small things like that would help in large scale. So again, we can talk about the amount of sunlight and the weather. That is, in agriculture, that is something which is really needed, and that data can be given through IoT systems, right? Farmers today can access a simple app and take real-time readings of the temperature and weather conditions. That app gets real-time data from IoT devices, because the weather measuring tools are connected to the internet. So those are important factors. So there then usage of fertilizer is there. Then again, there is the usage of water that can be controlled, and to the right amounts. The amount of moisture can be also determined in agriculture through IoT devices. And we can, so end of the day, we will have food, or rice. If you take the rice we get, right, the minimum, farmers could use the minimum or optimal amount of fertilizer and water needed, thus saving excess use of fertilizer and water. That means reducing the price of rice, right? Simple things like that. It adds value, it improves process, right? It gives farmers decision making ability. If the farmer knows, okay, now there's enough fertilizer in the ground to grow this plant, I don't need to buy more fertilizers and spend more money. So things like that, right? Then from agriculture, we can see how logistics, storage and warehouses. We can see the example of how IoT is used in this, right? We talked about surveillance. I gave an example on having surveillance systems in warehouses, and how that surveillance systems can be used efficiently to protect what is in the warehouses. So logistical wise surveillance we talked about. What are the other things in logistics and storage? When having dairy products, meat or things like that, ice cream, for example, yogurt, we need cooler temperatures. So or temperature inside the storage area and temperature inside the storage unit where it is used to transport, how to be measured, and those things can be done through IoT devices. Large scale logistics can be managed by having GPS trackers on vehicles, right, to track real-time data of where the trucks are and how the deliveries will be made on time, or if there are any problems like a engine problem or something like that, quickly, because we have real-time data of the trucks where they are, uh, alternative solutions can be quickly taken. We can so when coming into large scale logistics, right, in warehouses, you have seen automated warehouses in Amazon. There is then in Alibaba, they have automated warehouses where storing of packages, delivering of packages, moving of packages from location to location is done by autonomous delivery units. You may have seen videos of now, things like pizzas or Uber Eats in United States using autonomous delivery vehicles to deliver that product to the homes, which again we talked about autonomous driving vehicles and how much IoT devices should be there to facilitate that, right? So we have, in logistical sense, when you have a vehicle, we have to see the location, the temperature inside the vehicle, if the products are going bad or not, to keep a surveillance, to know where they are, and so on and so forth. That is all being facilitated through IoT. If you order something online, you will have the ability to see where the product is. It is moving from here, this storage unit, or from the shop to this storage unit. Then you will see that from that storage unit it will go to another place, and then it will come to your home in 3 days. You can track that in real time. How can you track? They guarantee, okay, this package came from the storage unit, storage area 1 to storage area 2, where it is near to your location. How can that data come to your phone, or come to how can you check that through the internet? By IoT, right? They will have barcodes, they can scan it, they can upload it, that data will be there. Nobody is checking the inside of the package and typing in manually what is going on. So it's an automated process. It is IoT devices connected to the cloud working together. If you have the logistical needs of a single person and the logistical needs of companies are totally different, so more the IoT devices that is being used, much better it would be. We have seen the Tesla truck coming out, right? And for last time when I read the article, they are testing the Tesla truck with PepsiCo, so to move their product. That means that when autonomous driving capable vehicle is moving logistical products, the amount of IoT that is being used, the amount of sensors, the amount of actuators, the amount of data that is being produced, processed, right, and it is tremendous. So we can now see that application of IoT is endless. IoT device would have sensors. We talked about in when we are talking about the introduction to IoT, it would have sensors, actuator, processing ability, software, and other technologies, right? That's IoT. We talked about examples of IoT. Now we can see that application of IoT can be used to make things better, right? The data that is being used can be analyzed, and those analyzed data can be used for enhanced decision making. We can use IoT solutions to solve challenges and problems, give a solution to those problems. We can see how these things improve process. If those days, if you have a package or a mail to be sent, if and right, in like not far long ago, in like 1990s, till the time that the package goes to the other location, nobody knows what happens. But today we can track them. So those ability, that ability is there because of IoT, right? We can right, we can today we can keep an eye on manufacturing products. We can keep a eye on like here we were not able to talk about this, about transportation. If you are going in a Uber, you can share your real-time data with your friends or with your loved ones, parents or somebody, thus giving a sense of security and giving the ability to have a secure trip, right? That ability is there, which means how that is guaranteed? That is guaranteed through a IoT device. What is the IoT device? The IoT device is your smartphone. Your smartphone has cameras, GPS, accelerometers, gyroscopes, network connectivity to the internet through cellular or Wi-Fi, so on and so forth. Right. So in that scenario, that the IoT device would be your phone, right? And that data which is being collected from cellular towers, you can triangulate your location, and again through GPS. Combination of both those sensors data can be given out live. If you feel afraid to go on a, let's say, Uber ride or Pick Me ride by yourself, you can give that real-time data to people you know. So if God forbid something happens, people would know. So safety is guaranteed, right? When the product, as Uber giving that safety option, that means that there is a value created because that option is there. People who are driving Uber would know this option is there, and they will the behavior of the unknown driver would be restricted because of this, right? So those are options that we are able to have because of IoT applications, right? Because of using applied IoT. Again, I think now you have an idea of how IoT is applied, and I think now you may have an idea of how vast of a nature is IoT. It spans through single person use to a multi-industry to the global stage, right? Because in weather monitoring, it happens in global stage. You can be here in Colombo, but you can check the weather in New York in real time. That is IoT in action. So again, I will read. Applied IoT refers to the practical application of Internet of Things technologies, right? IoT technologies and solutions in real world scenarios across various industries and domains to It involves using IoT devices. It involves using IoT devices, connectivity, data analytics, and cloud platforms to solve specific challenges, improve process, enhance decision making, and create value. So that is what applied IoT is about, right? IoT devices in past about the lesson about IoT would talk about what are IoT devices and what are the components in IoT devices. We have a physical layer where we have actuators, sensors, processing units working together, network together to give outcome. Connectivity is of course a part of IoT, Internet of Things. It's need to be networked to something, and that something could be networked to another thing, and that could be networked to intranet, and that intranet it could be networked to the internet itself. So we are talking about a vast connectivity network. Data analytics and cloud platforms, of course, those two run together, right? Big data and cloud processing, right? It all those four features together will gives a IoT application or applied IoT, right? That IoT application would be able to solve specific challenges or problems, improve processes, enhance decision making, and create value. Right now, till now we looked at IoT, right? We looked at IoT devices. What are the examples? We took a introduction or the definition of IoT. We looked at devices, different kinds of IoT devices, and then we looked at different kinds, several examples of applications. Couple of IoT devices working together to resolve a situation, or a set of particular IoT devices used in several scenarios to take information for different scenarios, and we looked at a mix and match of all of them, right? Then we talked about applied IoT, and we talked about different industries and different scenarios that IoT is being applied. So then again, we are not going into any technical details, right? We are not going into any technical details on about IoT devices. I think by now you are familiar with those things. Our main focus will be to understand how to apply IoT for different industries or different domains. What are the problems there? How can we give a IoT solution, right? So again, the outcome of it, of applied IoT, would be solving specific challenges, improving process, enhancing decision making, and create value. So let's go to the next part of it. So when we are applying IoT, when we are going to apply IoT, that IoT system would have several characteristics, right? And we are now we will look at those several characteristics, right? There are 9 characteristics, including connectivity, sensing and perception, data analytics, automation and control, scalability, security and privacy, real-time communication. When we say security and privacy, it's among the communication as well. Real-time communication, we talked about this. Heterogeneity and edge computing. So in this, when giving IT solution, giving an IoT solution, right? These points will be there in that particular solution, right? So these are the characteristics that you may see in a IoT system. When we talk about IoT systems, right? We do not need to be under the boundaries of IoT systems used in a smart home or thing like that. We have to think in large scale how to apply IoT for cities, big factories, large areas. When you're talking about applying IoT for agriculture, it won't be for a small area, it won't be just one or two IoT devices. We are talking about thousands of IoT devices, let's say measuring the moisture of the soil in hundreds and hundreds of acres, right? So in such a large scale IoT solution, these are the characteristics we see, right? Before going into anything else, let's first we will look at these characteristics, right? Number one would be we will look at maybe 1 and 2 for today, right? We will continue with rest of it in the next lecture, because as we have reached 2 hours, right? So connectivity, in connectivity, IoT devices are interconnected and communicate each other over the internet or local area network. So this is something that I have been repeating again and again, and that is one of the main characteristics. A device to become a IoT should be networked. It could be a local network or an intranet, or either could be the internet. So the IoT device doesn't mean you have to be connected to the internet itself to work. If the processing capabilities and everything is there locally, right, and the cloud is not needed, the IoT device can function by itself. But anyway, the sensors, the actuators, the embedded devices should be networked between each other to pass on data, process data, and output commands. They can exchange data and collaborate to perform tasks, enabling seamless integration and interoperability. So basically what this means is that not only connectivity between the IoT device and the human, the connectivity between each IoT device, right? That's why they can exchange data. So each IoT device can exchange the data and perform their task, right? Enabling seamless integration and interoperability. So basically, integration and interoperability is used to describe that machines, PCs, or like computers talking together and performing a task, sharing data, processing it, and performing a task. This connectivity, the best example as devices connectivity goes to the robot arm, as we have talked before. When working in let's say automotive industry, we have all seen robot arms working together to build a car. But which process to do at what time and whom, like how these robot arms do things without conflicting, that is done by an intricate network system, taking in data, distributing that data to the needed parties, processing that data, and understanding at which point of the process these robot arms have to move and do the task, right? So similarly, we talked about the network connectivity. Here is a good example. The smoke detectors, the smart smoke detectors detecting the fire, the control unit processing that particular data and actioning the needed sprinkler system to activate. So all these things happen without the intervention of a human being. All these things can be automated, and that automation, we are talking the connectivity, so they can exchange data and collaborate to perform tasks. That is what it meant by IoT. So IoT in the subject itself enables seamless integration and interoperability between IoT systems, IoT devices, and so on and so forth. So first and foremost, the first characteristics of IoT would be connectivity, or in another word would be the networking of that device. The physical device would be connected to a network, right? Then we have sensing and perception. So the perception layer, we talked about this is the hardware components for it, right? The perception layer we talked about yes, not on this lesson, but if you were to learn IoT, not applied IoT, but IoT itself, how to make an embedded device and so on, you may have learned that there are 4 main layers when building an embedded IoT device, and one of the main layers would be the perception layer, or the hardware device, where the sensors and the actuators are, alongside with the network layer. So we talked about connectivity as a characteristics of IoT. The next most significant characteristic of IoT would be the hardware component of it, where sensing and perception layers, sensing and perception we can say, and it would be facilitated through hardware components, where which includes sensors and actuators for sensing and perception. IoT devices are equipped with sensors and perception capabilities to gather data about their environment. These sensors can include temperature, humidity, motion, light, pressure, and various other types of sensors depending on the application. Sensing enables real-time monitoring, data collection, and contextual awareness. We talked about these examples extensively above, right? We talked about different types of IoT devices, and we talked about how these IoT devices have the capability to measure temperature, humidity, especially in the thermostat, or if you take the weather monitoring IoT devices, these abilities there. We talked about motion sensors, we talked about smart lights. We didn't have an example for pressure, but this is also a sensor that can be used, and various other types of sensors depending on the application. Yes, if you have if again, when you study how to make IoT devices, you will come across these sensors. So when we talk about sensors, each of these devices have one or more sensors working to understand the environment around it. Let's say the Roomba would have proximity sensors to understand if there's an object in front of it in the direction that it goes, so that it can change its direction. So sensors, that hardware component, the hardware part of it, is a very important part of IoT. And sensing and perception, understanding the environment through sensors, is a part or a characteristic of IoT, right? So with real-time monitoring, data collection, and contextual awareness, we again talked about those things when talking about each and every each and every device and scenario. Real-time data gathering, let's say automotive driving vehicle. This would have all types of sensors to understand the scenario that the car is driving in, where are the other perception of where are the other vehicles, or what the traffic lights and so on, where are the lines of the road and so on and so forth, will be at the real-time data will be at its disposal through sensors. It would be image sensors, or it would be lidars, or it would be proximity sensors. There will be accelerometers and so on and so forth. So these are the two main characteristics. There will be a network or connectivity will be there in IoT. Sensing and perception will be there in IoT, right? We will then go through rest of it on the next lesson, as we have now covered up to 2 hours, right? We will go through the characteristics of it. Most of these, the rest of the characteristics comes with cloud computing and cloud computing and networking. All these resources, like if you take edge computing, even those things comes from mainly through cloud computing. But of course there will be intranets which will have the ability to process data by itself as well. But so the main two characteristics are this when talking about characteristics of IoT, right? There will be connectivity and there will be sensors or a hardware component. It is safe to say that there will be hardware component which is networked. Those are the main two characteristics, or the single starting point of a IoT system. Then on the next lesson we will look through the other characteristics, and then we'll go to introduction to machine, the concept of M2M, machine to machine, right? We will go through that, and then we will talk about application of machine to machine in the sense of IoT, not only this machine to machine is a old concept comparative to IoT, right? But we will see how machine to machine is today evolved using IoT. That is how machine to machine is today working with IoT, right? And we will then look in that we will look at industrial automation, smart grids, transportation, right, healthcare. We will go through the examples again and of these things, and we will talk about machine to machine and IoT. What are the differences? What are the similarities? Right, today the line between machine to machine and IoT is pretty much blurred, and the main application today, if you are looking for a machine to machine solution, let's say in a manufacturing plant, if you are looking for a machine to machine solution, we are basically talking about a large scale IoT solution, right? So we will end it from sensing and perception layer, right, as 2 hours has been passed. In the next lecture we will review what we have talked about till now, and we will start from here onwards and continue. Thank you everyone.